Well, here we are. Uh, Today is the day. I am officially, well, not officially. Uh, Hold on. Ugh. So yeah, not officially yet. Like today is the day I was born. Yes, but I was born. I was an afternoon baby. So if you want to get technical, I'm not even 26 yet. But bleh. Today's the day. I'm 26. I'm officially leaving my mid 20s. God, I'm old. Uh it's so weird to think about. Like I was born at 2:23 p.m. in 98. So it's kind of weird to think about sometimes. And it's been an interesting it's been a very interesting year. That's for damn sure. Uh just in the context of since I turned 25. Like Like a lot of different shit has happened. Like I got in a bigger spat with Mania again. Uh I lost my job. Um I've been grinding Elden Ring mods. I've been disconnecting myself from all of these toxic groups that I've been a part of for too long. Um I'm growing as my own person again. Like I felt like if you haven't known me, like if you haven't been like paying attention to some of my stuff, like I was very different when I was, well, technically I can say when I was younger, when I was a younger man. uh Not a boy anymore, but I was a young man. I'm not a young man anymore. Kind of all over the place, sorry. But it's so weird to just be in this position right now. Like I've been making content for a long time, but I've also been alive even longer. Like people say you've been doing YouTube for almost 8 years. That's crazy. That's a long time. And it's another one of those things where it's like, yeah, but I've been on the planet even longer. And it's been a lot of me reflecting recently, especially at the start of this year. Like since 2024 hit, I've been making like a lot of major changes to myself. Like I've been exercising more often. I've been like I'm actively looking for jobs right now even though the job market is ass. Uh I'm spending more time with my family. I've been having a lot more fun playing games again. Like I reconnected with Beeper. Like B and I, that's actually a really fun thing. Like B and I reconnected literally 3 days ago. Was it 3 days ago? Cuz it's been a couple of days. Like since I last went live. God, that was 4 days ago. So like 4 days ago, B messaged me like during he like was in my live chat and he's like, "Hey, I'd love to hang out again." And we reconnected and it was like he's one of those friends that I can reconnect with and it's like no time has passed at all. Like we were both in our really weird headspaces and we both kind of had our own rough times. And him especially, like he moved out of his house, tried to be on his own for a while, and then he had to move back home. And he's working a job and going to school at the same time. He's graduating this year, and he's not sure what he's doing next. Like, he's in that period of his life. Whereas I'm in the period of my life where I'm just kind of rolling with things. I don't really have any expectations for anything at this point in my life. I'm just kind of rolling with the punches that I'm given at this point. Like, I feel like I'm in my element again. Like, I don't feel alienated for my own content anymore. I feel like I feel more myself than I have been in years. Like, I've been at war with myself for the like 5 years because of all the crap that's gone on. And I'm finally reconnecting with myself and liking myself again. And it's good. Also, my my convergence 1.4.1, like the boss showcase that I made for Scion of the Sealed God, is at 69 views. That made me laugh. And I'm like, whatever happens happens at this point, and I feel so much more open to interacting with people again. I don't want to be closed off in my little insular bubble anymore. I've been purposefully avoiding that, actually. Like, that's kind of been the biggest thing that I've changed, probably out of anything since January. Like, I've been changing things since January. And it's helped immensely. Like, I left this circle that I had built around myself to just kind of like it was something that I had come to realize about myself. I'd been living in an echo chamber for several years, and it was something that I never thought that I would have to worry about again, because like back in 2020 I had my own server, and it was kind of like this huge echo chamber, and it wasn't good for me, and it was part of the reason why my mental health tanked so badly that year. Like, I still consider 2020 to be the worst year of my life, but 2019 was the best year of my life. It was either 2019 or 2018. I don't remember. But it was just not good. And then I disconnected from those people. And I mean, naturally, those people decided to get upset. But at the same time, they decided to be completely psychotic and delusional and try to make this weird hit piece about me as if I'm some disgusting, evil person, when these people were literally friends with me like a month ago. Except one of them. Like, one of them in particular, I haven't even talked to in 2 years. Like, I cut them out years ago. And I was just like, okay. And they've decided to make a huge stink about it. And I mean, they're wasting all of their time just stalking and harassing my content because they think that's going to get them some kind of justice. And I don't think they realize that, like, that's kind of sort of what I did to Mania like 5 years ago when I was at my worst. Thankfully, I'm much better as an individual now than I was then. Like, it's just been interesting. it's just been a very interesting time for me. I'm really trying to break out of this bubble that I've built around myself. I want to be trying new things. I want to get back into the things that I really enjoy. Literally, I think it was yesterday. I finally went out and I got a whole list of horror games to go play, and I'm so excited to get into that today. I think I'm gonna start with the Dead Space demake demo that I found. It was really interesting because I know Bloodborne PSX, like the Bloodborne demake, has been a thing and it was really popular. I've played that. It's really good. But like I didn't expect like a Dead Space demake to come out. And it's based off of the original and not the remake, obviously. But it's really cool. I've checked it out. I've seen some stuff about it. It's really cool, and I'm excited to start getting into that. So maybe a video later. I don't know when I'm gonna have them uploaded. It'll be whatever I decide in the moment, mostly. But it's it's also been another interesting point where I've had to realize that I am a very attached person. Like if I attach to you, like especially if I'm your friend, um I become very attached. But it's been these past few months has been me realizing that sometimes I need to just step away and let people find their own way, if that makes any sense. Like they need to figure it out themselves. They don't always need my advice. They don't always need me around. And that's kind of something that I've had to accept and like learn, cuz I'm a very active and involved friend. I don't like just to sit around and wait for things to happen. I like to push people to be doing things all the time. Like B is a great example. Like he usually is not always the one to have initiative over what we do, but at the same time he also has his own ideas. Like there's a you've seen in some of the content that he's been in with me. Like he was the one who pushed me to play Dark Souls uh way back in yonder years. uh like he was the person who got me into Dark Souls. And then when I finally did an entire full playthrough of Dark Souls 1, like he was dicking with me and everything, but he really wanted me to get into it. He was the one who helped spark my love for those games. And it was after that I played Elden Ring, and I've never stopped since. I have almost 750 hours in Elden Ring at this point, and I only just it's actually really funny cuz I only just got all achievements for Elden Ring like 3 days ago. Like I finally got the last 2 achievements, which for some weird reason was the legendary ashes. Like I've never picked up all the legendary ashes. And it was something that I did for my Elden Ring DLC, like the Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC prep. Like I have a character fully finished now. It was during that prep that I picked up the last legendary ash, and then I got the last 2 achievements because yeah, legendary Ashen Remains and Elden Ring. It's probably the only game I have in my list that I have 100% achievements on. Like I fucking love this game. I've played it a lot. You would have thought that I would have gotten it sooner, considering how much I've played it. But it also doesn't surprise me because Convergence specifically removes the Mimic tier ashes, and that's one of the legendary tiers or legendary spirit ashes. And it's you can't get that achievement if you don't have it. So I've been playing Convergence was one of the main reasons why I have so many hours in this game. And I'm all for it. I fucking love it. And it also reminds me that I can't wait for Archthrones to be finished, because, like, yeah, in my video I had some very specific problems with the mod. I still love it. I love these games so much, and I want to play more content for these games. It's why I'm so fucking excited for the Elden Ring DLC. I'm excited for Archthrones. I'm continuously excited for Elden Ring Reborn and the Convergence to get updates. Like, every time I get a notification from the Convergence server, I'm like, new update, new stuff. And, like, Scion of the Sealed God is a really fucking cool boss. The current version of Convergence is probably easily one of the best versions that they've ever made. Like, there are some things that I'm not okay with, but then they've kind of amended a small bit, and it's made things slightly better, and I'm still on the fence about certain things. But Reborn is probably the one that I've had the most issues with, but that's mainly because of the kind of game that they're really going for. And it just doesn't flow good if you aren't using the right weapons. Like, power stancing in Reborn, my god, I had more problems trying to play the game than I ever have trying to power stance in Reborn. Like, I did power stancing with the Scavenger's Curved Sword, which is the jagged curved swords that are kind of showcased in the trailer of the game, and I really like those, but at the same time, holy god. Because there are some areas of the game that heavily rely on you using the parrying mechanic. And I think this is kind of the same thing that I had a problem with Archthrones with, because it seems like they're trying to go for the same kind of thing. It actually makes me wonder if Halcyon is working on that too. Because Halcyon is the developer of Reborn. Is he involved in Archthrones? I actually don't know. But yeah, like, Archthrones really made me wish that I could replay all of DS3 again. Like, I've been tempted to reinstall the Convergence mod for DS3 and play the shit out of it, because there are specific things that I really, really, really like about Dark Souls 3. I just think that 90% of the main game is mid. It's so underwhelming compared to some of the other games, but at the same time, it's way better than Dark Souls 2. I think my ranking for the Dark Souls series specifically is Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, and then Dark Souls 2. Like, Dark Souls 2 is always at the bottom of my list. It's not... I really wanted to like Dark Souls 2. There's a lot of cool ideas, and there's a lot of things that I like about it. It's kind of the same boat as Dark Souls 3 for me. But, like, the mechanics are bad. Like, there's so much that's bad about Dark Souls 2. It's not that the developers couldn't do it without Miyazaki. It's just that they didn't do it well, and they didn't have enough time to fix it. Otherwise, Dark Souls 2 would be an incredible game. I think if someone managed to go through and polish Dark Souls 2 and give it the kind of fluidity and precision that Dark Souls 3 has, it would be the best game in all of Dark Souls. Because there's so much variety in it, the environments are cool. If the level design was fixed a little bit more, it would be amazing. And I haven't really seen a lot of mods for Dark Souls 2, and that makes me really sad, because I feel like it has the most potential to be good. And, like, again, Archthrones, it uses Dark Souls 2 assets. and it's fucking amazing. But it is mostly heavily influenced by Dark Souls 3, which I feel is kind of a lost opportunity, but at the same time it makes sense. But like they completely revamped Liam Lois, you know, one of the best zones in all of Dark Souls. Well, Dark Souls 2 specifically. They completely revamped Hyde's Tower of Flame, and it looks incredible. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do. I just think they really need to properly tune the parrying mechanic and remove the Sekiro mobs. They specifically need to remove the Sekiro mobs. I'm not a fan, don't like them. Remove their ability to parry your attacks, and then we're golden. Because it's not the, because I had this conversation with B the other day. Hard doesn't equal good in a Dark Souls game. And even FromSoft has the same problem. Hard doesn't equal good. And even, like I said, FromSoft even has this problem, like with Melania specifically. Like, between Melania and Moog, which are the real endgame bosses, besides Horaloo and Radagon, Moog is so much better because he's actually properly designed. Well, not properly designed, but actually fully... You can actually fight him fairly. Melania has so many moves that she can just randomly open up with that you have next to no chance of actually predicting or even have any real telegraphs of what she's going to be doing. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Melania is still an incredible boss. I think she's still really highly ranked for me in terms of boss fights, especially in Elden Ring. But another thing is fast-paced fights aren't always good either. Like, some of the best fights in all of the Souls games history have been these slower fights. These specifically designed one-on-one fights that are much slowerly drawn out. That didn't make any sense. But like, I'm talking like Gale, Midir, fucking not Ornstein and Smo. Who else am I thinking of? I'm thinking of a Dark Souls 1 boss, like Sif. Who else? There's a couple of Dark Souls 2 bosses, especially in the DLC that I'm talking about, like Sin. Oh god, I can't remember the dude's name. There's also Lost Sinner. I think Lost Sinner is he is the best main game boss fight in Dark Souls 2. Like, just for plain vanilla game and not DLC. I don't remember. There's lore about Lost Sinner, and I haven't brushed up on my Dark Souls 2 lore. Don't hate me. Like Radon. There's a lot of these times the boss fights don't even have to be about mechanics. They also have to be about the spectacle. Like, especially with Radon. Like, the whole thing with Radon is that you can choose whether or not to use the summons or fight him by yourself. And I used to summon for the fight all the time, but now I just fight him by myself because I find his attacks to be much more fun to fight with one-on-one. But the other thing that a really good Souls boss has to have is adaptability. You have to be able to have this adaptability for every boss. And it's one of the reasons why FromSoft is kings of their craft. It is specifically designing these bosses to be able to be fought in dozens of different ways. Consumables, bows, great swords, curved swords, fast weapons, slow weapons. Like, there's so many infinite numbers of ways that you can fight a Souls boss. But when you get to the point that you're making bosses that have very specific ways of fighting them, and I'm specifically going to point out Archthrones for this problem. Keeper of the Old Gods, which is the character, the NPC that's played by Vati. The other boss that was there, I can't remember its name, but they were specifically heavily influenced by Sekiro, obviously. But they lost the idea that you had to slow down the pace of the fight so that it could match the flow of combat in Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 is not as fast as Sekiro or Elden Ring. Elden Ring is slightly faster paced than Dark Souls 3, but Sekiro is infinitely faster paced than any of those games. It is such a vastly different type of combat that is not designed for the Dark Souls 3 combat. And it completely destroys any kind of synergy that you have with those kinds of bosses. And you can't really use your parry mechanic because you're so slow. You cannot parry all of the boss's attacks because the input feedback is so delayed. And that was kind of part of the problem that I didn't talk about. And I've completely gone off on this tangent when this is supposed to be about me getting old. Sorry. I get really, really into talking about these kinds of games because I very, very much enjoy them. Even when the design isn't good, I still enjoy them because they're fun. But it's when you start destroying my fun that I get kind of heated and I get frustrated. And that's something you don't want to have in your Souls games. You don't want the game to be frustrating. Otherwise, you're just playing Dark Souls 2. And nobody wants to be playing Dark Souls 2. But back to what I was talking about. I don't know. It's just been an interesting time for me as I'm getting older and I'm reflecting and I'm really learning more about myself and I'm really reconnecting with myself because the whole fight with Mania really kind of destroyed any real connection with myself because I thought I knew who I was. Like, very stupid and naive of me to think that when I was 19, 20, 21. And here I am 5 years later and I've learned so much more than I knew then. And it's just one of those things where it's like yeah, I know who I am, but I don't really have that connection with myself that I should to fully maximize like my personality. And it's really kept me closed off and very reserved, and it's kept me from taking initiative in a lot of different things that I haven't done before. And it's left me very depressed and down, and it's like there was a point last year where I could barely get out of bed at any point, like for weeks. Like there were some days that I just didn't even get out of bed, and I slept a day, 2 days away. And then there are other days where I refused my body refused to let me sleep. So where I would be up for 2-3 days at a time with no sleep. And it was just I was just completely out of whack in terms of where I was, not only with my body, but also in here, in my brain. and it led to a lot of lashing out to against other people and myself. And it's just one of those things that I've had to reset myself on, and I feel like I've done a very good job on doing that. Now, that's not to say there hasn't been any drama already this year, but that's just because disconnecting from a friend group that you've been a part of for years is not always going to smooth over with the people in that friend group. I left that friend group and they immediately started trying to plot my downfall. Okay. If you want to be that petty and pathetic, go ahead. Waste your time. It won't affect me ever. I mean, it's just one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I kind of put myself in that position by involving myself with those kinds of people. But at the same time, I couldn't really blame myself because I was lonely, depressed, and angry. Not that kind of lonely. Don't get it twisted. I don't have a sex life to speak of. Like, don't get me wrong. I am a man. I'm a 26-year-old man. And I have, like, needs. But I also am more than self-aware enough to realize that I'm probably better off staying on my own because I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm not fit to be in any kind of relationship. Like, physical, online, or sexual of any kind, because it's just not... I wouldn't be good for them. That doesn't mean I don't eventually want to have relationships, but it also means that, like, I have a lot of work to do on myself. And there are some people who are telling me, like, well, you won't find the right person if you're not looking. And I'm like, and my rebuttal is, well, guess what? Sometimes the right person is looking for you, and you looking is the reason why they've never found you. You don't always need to look for gold to strike gold. It's the same thing with trouble and drama. You don't always need to be looking for trouble or looking for drama for trouble and drama to find you. Sometimes it just happens. And who knows? No one knows what's going to happen. Like, you can't predict your everyday life. And that's kind of what makes living life exciting. You don't want to be able to predict your everyday life. Like, yeah, it gives people comfort to be able to predictably go through their lives and know what they're going to be doing every day. But I can't live like that. I like the unpredictability of my life. You never know where I'm going to end up. And who knows? Like, I think I've handled a lot of things very well over my life, and I think I've handled things not so well over my life. I don't know. It's just been one of those things. And and that's one thing that you really need to learn about me. I am a very confident individual when I know that I'm right. Like, when I know that I'm right in doing something, I am the most confident and cocky person in the world. Like, that's it's just me being a human being. Like, I know that I'm right and I'll stand by it. But at the same time, I'm open to you trying to prove me wrong. But at the same time, I'm not but unlike back then, now I'm not willing to get into these arguments over things. I want to have conversations. I want to really understand your side of things. But when you open up with hostility and demands and like aggressive like arguments about things, that's when I immediately turn you off and immediately think that you're completely wrong. Because if you can't be reasonable, then why should I give you the time of day? Is kind of my thinking. But at the same time, I also understand that people by nature are emotional. But when you get into things like drama, you really have to think these things through. You cannot do things on impulse. You cannot do things off the cuff. That can simply get you into even more trouble. You can't do that. Like, go look at some, like, real world dramas that happen and spill out into the real world that lead into getting arrested or getting assaulted or having fights break out. Like, that's what happens when proper communication fails. It bleeds out into the real world and people get hurt. Good side and bad. Like, right and wrong. It doesn't matter. And then there's also the points where you have to realize you don't have to convince anyone of your side. Opinions are, that's the beautiful thing about opinions, is that you can have them and you don't have to care about what anybody else thinks about them. You don't have to share them. You don't have to debate about them. And I have a lot of those, and they don't come out of my mouth because I'm more than entitled to think what I want. But it's when you start forcing your opinions on other people, that's when I start biting back. And it's just one of those things. I don't know. I have a lot of views on things that some people don't agree with and would immediately label me as anything because that's what the internet does. They don't want to have they don't want you to speak your side. They just want you to reinforce their beliefs. That's just kind of the internet we live in. And so I just don't deal with it. So, yeah, I think I've rambled on long enough. I kind of have other stuff to do today too, so I probably shouldn't go on for an hour. But yeah, it's been an interesting uh addition to yet another year of my life, and I'm very interested and looking forward to stuff that's happening for the next year of my life. The ups and the downs. I'm looking forward to it. So, anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!